Vayeshev Yaakov. I'm starting off great. And Jacob dwelled or settled. Vayeshev, a simple phrase, the name of this week's Torah portion, and an ancestral question of the Jewish people. What does it mean to dwell on land with ourselves and with each other? Vayeshev is also Torah's sign that something bad is coming. The Midrash, our sacred text of Torah commentary, tells us whenever scripture uses the expression, and he dwelled or settled, it connotes misfortune. This week, the misfortune is a continuation of what has already been a very violent and troubled family history in the first book of Torah. We started really strong with Cain killing his own brother Abel. Abraham, who leaves his firstborn Ishmael to die in a desert, and then tries to sacrifice his other youngest son, Isaac, on a mountain, after which we don't see them speak or interact in the text again. Later, Isaac is tricked by his own son, Jacob, into giving him the blessing meant for his brother, Esau. Then, of course, there's Rachel and Leah struggling to win the love of their husband, Jacob, through a race to produce heirs for him. This is also not an exhaustive list. Between the killing, the abandoning, the lying, the stealing, the jealousy, and the pain, calling this family tree dysfunctional would be slightly an understatement. And it's here in these gnarled roots that we find Joseph, Jacob's 11th and favorite son, a fact known to all by Jacob's special treatment of him and the special tunic he gave Joseph to wear. We're told that Joseph was young, a dreamer, and also played the role of Jacob's informant among his 11 brothers. Depending on which commentator you read, Joseph was either naming his own mistreatment by his brothers or acting as a spoiled tattletale. Then Joseph starts telling these brothers about his dreams that depict the brothers as bundles of wheat, their father and mother as celestial beings, all of them bowing down to him. So Joseph is a snitch with an overdeveloped ego. Needless to say, these dreams do not shift the brothers to any place of empathy towards Joseph. Not only are they living a personal family dynamic rooted in a lineage of fatal sibling rivalry, they are now looking at a future political dynamic as well, a prospect they are reminded of continually. As a parent, we can imagine Jacob is aware of this tension in his kids' relationship. So when the brothers go off quite a distance to pasture their flock, the choice Jacob makes to send Joseph out to find them is an interesting parental choice. And while I can see the appeal of sending your arguing kids out into the wilderness alone, there is a subtle grief in Jacob's resignation to this moment. This is not what settling should feel like. When the brothers see Joseph far in the distance, they conspire to kill him. But as Joseph comes closer, the brothers shift, and so does the plan. Let's throw him in a pit and say a beast devoured him. And so they do. And then that warning word comes up again. Vayeshvu lechol lechem. And they settled to eat a meal. Vayeshvu. They threw their younger brother Joseph into the pit, leaving him to die. And then they settled down on the top of his natural prison and ate lunch. And why shouldn't they? After all, the brothers were truly afraid of Joseph. According to the commentator Sforno, they saw Joseph as a rodef, a pursuer. This was simply an act of self-preservation, a right to defend oneself. They had so convinced themselves that they were in danger that they lost the ability to imagine a world that was any different. Their hatred had grown so thick they no longer recognized Joseph as their brother, allowing them to commit violence based on false scarcity and imagined precarity. Had they recognized the suffering of Joseph rather than seeing him as a threat, they would have fasted, not feasted. After the picnic at the edge of the pit, Joseph is sold to the Ishmaelites, another unrecognized kin in this family drama. To cover up their crime, the oldest brother, Judah, take Joseph's tunic, dips it in goat's blood, and presents it to their father, Jacob, saying, Hakerna, recognize this, please. Judah pleads. Jacob sees the coat and the blood and cries out that a beast had killed his son. He rends his clothes and observes the mourning practice for many days. But he never asks the brothers what happened. Hakerna, the only other time this phrase is used in Torah, is in this same parsha, where the story of Joseph is seemingly randomly interrupted with a side quest of Tamar and Judah. The same Judah responsible for the selling of Joseph is himself confronted with articles of clothing. In a series of marriages and deaths, Judah had abandoned his daughter-in-law Tamar to be a childless widow in the home of her father, unable to remarry. After being in this limbo for years, Tamar takes things into her own hands, disguises herself as a sex worker, sleeps with Judah, and becomes pregnant. When Judah finds out, he tries to have her executed. That is a different Josh for a different night, naming that is painful. But Tamar had kept Judah's staff and ring as payment. So in the ultimate Jerry Springer of Torah moment, Tamar pulls out the staff and ring of the father and says to Judah, Hakerna, recognize these? But the roots of Hakerna, Nachar, Nun, Kaf, Resh, means more than recognition. It is to acknowledge, to know. Playwright Agnes Berinsky points out beautifully that what both Jacob and Judah are being asked to recognize are not just articles of clothing. The real petition, acknowledge me. The brothers and Tamar, while coming from different experiences, are going to the people with power for the same thing. Hakerna, see my pain. See the years of abandonment, favoritism, distrust, and harm. Know that you are part of this. Yes, they have lied and deceived. They are not perfect heroes, but it needs to be recognized that they did not get into these situations alone. All of the actors here are part of a larger system, both internal family dysfunction and systemic injustice. Jacob and Judah both have accountability to take in this story. They have caused harm that has perpetuated more harm. In Jacob's case, he does not recognize. Instead, he immediately and only blames a beast. It was impossible to face the reality that his sons could have murdered Joseph, even more so to recognize his own responsibility in creating the power dynamic and relationship that would lead them to this horrific act. It must be something external. It is often too overwhelming to our systems to think we could cause harm, but we are all capable of causing harm. It is what we do when confronted with it that allows us for change. In our own lives and as a Jewish people, we are both Joseph and the brothers, both victim and perpetrator, the one in the peat and the one settled feasting. But we did not get here alone. We are all in systems built on pits that survive on us looking away from the experience of others. Those living on the street, those with addictions, migrants, asylum seekers, disabled folks, the global south, refugees, children, animals, the earth itself, who we see as valuable and who deserves our attention. These two stories, both Judah confronting his father and Tamar confronting Judah, shows us the transformative potential in the radical recognition of the other. When we encounter another individual truly as a person, not as an object for use, we become fully human. That is the belief of Martin Buber. The I towards thou, rather than I towards it, creates a relationship without bounds. In the beginning of Torah, we are cycling through this warring sibling pattern that repeats and repeats and repeats with only a glimpse of repair. Ishmael and Isaac bury Adam together, but do not remain together. Esau and Jacob meet in the desert and kiss, but then separate. There's reconciliation, but there is no resolution. Each generation is stuck in their own freeze response, unable to soften or move towards the other. But every human cultural tradition has an element whose role it is to agitate those who are stuck, those that can't envision any different way of being, those who have settled. In fact, often that role is played by mourners, those who have encountered death, who bridge us between this world and the world to come. And so we have Tamar, a widow, a mourner of love, the life she expected, and a mourner of her own freedom, who comes to agitate the settled, who asks Judah, and in a way asks us, Hakerna, recognize this, acknowledge this pain, show us that you know. When Judah is asked to recognize the clothing from the man that got Tamar pregnant, he knows they are his and responds, she is more righteous than I. Judah recognizes not just the clothing, but his responsibility in the harm he himself caused. And in this moment, we are offered an ancestral path that alters relationships for generations. The family dynamics in Torah are in fact different after this moment. The agitation and the recognition of harm shifted our people, and from it we find the implied mitzvah of overcoming these warring parts of our relationships. Adrienne Marie Brown writes, I have become more radical in my belief that connection to each other is the most important thing to cultivate in the face of hopelessness. We don't want to cling to outdated paradigms. We want to cling to each other and shift the paradigms. Vayeshev and Hakerna, if settling is the harm, then radical recognition is its healing. It is the only form it is only from that place of recognition that the paradigm can shift. Vayeshev Jacob, our exemplar of the way the Jewish people can engage with other nations, his stuckness, the grief over his family and relationships, untended wounds from his life and lives before him, perpetuating the cycle forward for generations. Hakerna, the agitation of outdated paradigms, recognizing and knowing deeply what the people around you are experiencing, being given the chance to own your own role and being given the recognition when you need to be seen. Maybe being known and recognizing the other needs to come first. Maybe that is the only way we can move towards settling, so that it is no longer the trigger warning that the Torah gives us, but a new paradigm towards justice. Vayeshev and Hakerna, if settling is the harm, then radical recognition is the healing. May we find the strength to unsettle all the harm that leaves us separate from each other and recognize the divine spark in all life for the sake of healing and peace. Shabbat Shalom.
Down the street the dogs are barking and the day is getting dark. As night comes falling, the dogs will lose their bark. In the silent night will shine from the sounds inside my mind. As I'm on too many mornings and 1,000 miles behind. From the crossroads of my doorstep, my eyes start to fade, and I turn my head back to the road where my love and I will lay. And I gaze back to the street, the sidewalk and the sign, and I want too many mornings and 1,000 miles behind. It's a restless, lonely feeling. Don't mean no one will good. As everything I'm saying, you can say